Good morning, and welcome to this special episode of Power Policy in Progress. I'm Madison Maynard. It is Thursday, July 9th, and we are tracking a massive political earthquake out of New England that has completely upended the battle for control in the United States Senate. Last night, Maine's Democrat Senate nominee, Graham Platner, officially suspended his political campaign. The progressive outsider had been facing a lot of pressure to exit the race following a devastating direct accusation of rape from a former partner. With national funding completely frozen, party leaders defecting en masse, and a looming deadline to pull his name from the ballot, Platner finally broke his silence. So let's directly look at the tape where he defiantly resigned from his nomination.
Hey everyone, it's Graham Platner here. I think as many of you know, over the past couple days, I have faced some very serious allegations, and I just want to make it clear, this is all false. The things that have been claimed did not happen. It's not real. It has placed an immense amount of weight on me as I think about what needs to happen now. Amy and I are regular people. We were not looking for this experience. We were not looking to get into politics. We had no desire to run for office.
Then why did you? Why did you? Especially with all of the skeletons in his closet.
I just want you to think about what you would do as a regular person in a position where a much larger world, large forces were working against you personally to accuse you of the worst thing that a person could do, and it was not remotely true. I learned about this through press inquiries with no time to truly respond, no time for investigations before a corporate media system and the political establishment got to act as judge, jury, and executioner.
Here we go with the political establishment.
Accusations are supposed to be the beginning of things, not the end. I think it's really important to understand why this is happening in the timeline, why this is happening right now, much like October when the first attack started, much like the news that was created the week before the primary. There is a reason that this is happening now. I only have until July 13th until I am officially the nominee. This was the last week to try to get me off of the ballot. And that's why this is occurring. It's not the false allegations, though, that have brought us to where we are. It's the fact that they are being used by the political establishment to put structural pressure on us. We live in a political system that is not built for normal people. It is a system that is built structurally to make sure that movements like ours cannot flourish. That if they begin to succeed, they can be crushed.
Or maybe you were just the wrong guy to lead this movement. Maybe you were just the wrong guy to start this movement in Maine against the establishment. Just saying.
What we have accomplished here, you made possible. the people of Maine, the volunteers, the voters, the grassroots donors. And I have all the faith in the world that we could win if we could continue to harness that. But the brutal political reality is that they are going to take everything away from us. Those in power who have the ability to do so are using these allegations as an excuse to take away all of the things that we need to run a campaign. We are going to lose our ability to fundraise. We are going to lose our ability to access voter data. We are going to lose all of the things that any campaign needs on the basic level simply to function. Larger organizations, the national level party, the bigger donor networks, they have all committed to spending no money in this race if I'm in it. They would rather see Susan Collins win than have me be the next senator from Maine. What comes next needs to come from the people. Needs to come from the people of Maine. Needs to come from the voters who on June 9th, at a strength of over 150,000, the largest number in the history of Maine primaries, said no to this kind of politics. Voted for a politics that would actually represent them. Voted against the political system, against the donor class, against the entrenched forces. And I'm not asking for how this process is going to work. I'm not trying to dictate to anyone who it should be or how we get there, but I will say this. It needs to be open, transparent, and democratic. It needs to be reflecting the will and the values of the people that built this movement, the people that showed up on June 9th. People in DC need to stay in DC. Decisions should not be made in back rooms by people in places of political power. Party apparatchiks are not the ones to make these decisions. These decisions need to be made in the open by the people of this state, the people who got us here. This is exactly the kind of political system that everyone voted against on June 9th. And for that reason, we need to be assured that it is going to be open and democratic as we move forward. Amy and I struggled about getting into this. Last summer, right around this time of year, we sat down and we looked at each other and we said, if we believe in the kind of politics we think that we do, we have to do this. Over the past couple days, really yesterday and today, we have had to have that exact same conversation. We believe that for the movement to continue, it can't be me. And for that reason, we are suspending campaign operations.
So this is a long video. I'm going to end it there. I genuinely think that this was a weak statement, especially since he was accused of such an heinous, horrific crime. One of the most heinous and vile things that anyone could do to another person. He was accused of that, and instead he barely addressed it, except for it's false. And he went on a 6-7 minute rant about how the political establishment is against him. It's ridiculous. But let's get back to the reporting. So that was Graham Platner speaking from his home in coastal Sullivan, Maine. And what you just heard was not an apology, it was an angry, defiant rant against the current political system. Platner explicitly stated that his exit is not an admission of guilt, maintaining that the allegation that has been made against him is entirely false. Instead, he blamed a coordinated effort by the party establishment, claiming that he is dropping out strictly because of the structures and resources needed to run a campaign were being systematically stripped away by those in power. But let's ground this in the reality of the data. The structural collapse he is talking about happened because fellow Democrats simply could not look past the severity of this allegation. On Monday, and we talked about it last episode, a detailed political report exposed an accusation by Jenny Roscoe, who stated on the record to CNN that Graham Platner raped her in 2021. It's 2026. Not that long ago, okay? And even if it was 30 years ago, it would still be horrific. And either way, he would have been asked to drop out. But just wanting to know this was 2021. For a campaign that was already staggering under the weight of previous scandals that we've discussed on this show, including offensive old Reddit posts, an unsettling Nazi tattoo, and marital infidelity. This was the absolute end of the line. The abandonment by his own party was instant. Progressive titans who practically built Platner's political brand, including Senators Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren, they completely revoked their support. Then came the financial death blow. Chuck Schumer and the party's campaign arm announced that they would not put a single dollar into Maine if Graham Platner stayed on the ballot. So he was effectively starved out. Today, July 9th, the vacuum left behind is triggering a chaotic, high-stakes scramble because Platner officially met the state deadline to pull his name from the ballot. The Maine Democratic Party has until July 27th to select a replacement via an emergency 600 delegate nominating convention. And the floodgates have officially opened. I mean, it was almost instant. Former state Senate President Troy Jackson, a populist logger backed heavily by the party's progressive wing, jumped in immediately, filing his FEC paperwork and securing an early endorsement from Representative Ro Khanna. But he isn't alone. Today, we're seeing a massive field of contenders emerge, from Public Health Director Dr. Nirav Shah, who became a household face during the pandemic. He has thrown his hat into the ring, calling for a transparent process and at least one televised debate, which is not a bad idea. Maine Secretary of State Shenna Bellows, who ran against Susan Collins back in 2014, also announced that she is seriously evaluating a bid, pitching herself as uniquely qualified to unite a deeply fractured party. Add to that, Maine Beer Company co-founder Dan Kleban and State Representative Vali Giger, hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, who claimed Platner personally called her to offer his backing, and also a progressive activist, Paige Loud, and Democrats are staring down a messy and exhilarated internal battle right now. Whoever the party picks on July 27th faces a brutal uphill climb. They will have just over 100 days to build a statewide movement, raise millions of dollars, and overcome the immense exhaustion of a demoralized base. Susan Collins has spent decades dashing Democrat hopes in Maine, and right now her path to a sixth term looks wider than ever. And I also want to point out that around 2 years ago, today, around this time, Joe Biden dropped out of the presidential race and gave that spot to Kamala Harris to run for the Democratic nomination for president of the United States. That was 2 years ago. And so we are seeing an unfortunate pattern that the wrong people are running for office, and last minute they have to be replaced by someone else. And if this pattern continues, that is not going to be good for the Democratic Party. I know I'm only bringing up 2 examples, Graham Platner and Joe Biden, but it's only been 2 years. It's only 2 years apart. And it is very worrying that this has happened again, where someone else has to last minute campaign and is expected to win by the party on November 3rd, which is the midterm general election. So Graham Platner should have never ran in the first place. He knew all the skeletons in his closet, all of the campaign strategists, everyone who is working or did work for the Graham Platner campaign. Honestly, none of them should ever work in politics ever again. This was a disaster. This was a huge mistake. The stakes are too high in Maine and across the nation because we need to have a blue wave in the House and in the Senate to ensure checks and balances in Washington. The stakes were too high. They did not vet Graham Platner clearly. And we reacted to a video on Tuesday about this, right? We reacted to a Wall Street Journal interview with one of Graham Platner's senior strategists who had a horrible interview and basically was like, oh, Graham Platner, he just made some mistakes. No biggie. The vetting process was horrible. It wasn't there. And now we're in the situation and the stakes are too high. Maine was an easy race to win if they had a good progressive candidate who had no skeletons in his closet. And now we are seeing that we might not even win in Maine anymore. That was a critical state to win to ensure that Democrats take the House and take the Senate and we have a blue wave. This should have been an easy race to win. Kamala Harris won in Maine in 2024. She won in Maine with a Republican senator. This should have been an easy seat that would have guaranteed just one step closer to Democratic victory in November. But no, they chose Graham Platner and excused time and time again. They excused his horrific behavior, his horrific past with women, his racist, homophobic Reddit posts. And now with this rape accusation, they can't defend that. They can't defend that. So now last minute they have to scramble. So this is just disappointing for the Democratic Party because we needed Maine and now we probably won't win Maine. We probably won't. Now, I'll be surprised if we do at this point. And like I said, this was a chance for Democrats to win the House, win the Senate. We need to win every critical seat. We need to win every critical seat. And this Senate race in Maine was a critical seat. So it's unfortunate. That's all I have for you today. This was a special update of Power, Policy, and Progress with Madison Maynard. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I really hope you enjoyed today's episode. We will keep following this Graham Platner story, and we'll see who ends up being the nominee after July 27th. And thankfully, also, there's going to be a convention, so hopefully the 600 delegates make a good decision, okay? I really hope so. So please tune in next week. We will have more political conversations, more political news, analysis about the issues shaping our future. In the meantime, make sure to follow me on Instagram at Power Policy and Progress Podcast and follow me on TikTok at Power Policy Progress Pod for online content. If you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on your notifications so you never miss an episode. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, please follow, subscribe, rate the podcast preferably 5 stars to show your support. And of course, join in on the conversation, leave a comment, let me know your thoughts on today's topic. Discussing Graham Platner, please let me know. I'd love to hear from you. Do you think that Democrats are going to win Maine still? Do you think Susan Collins is going to win? I mean, Susan Collins has continuously beat the odds, so I want to know your thoughts. And thank you again for listening. I'm Madison Maynard, and you're listening to Power, Policy, and Progress. I'll see you next time.